They were there before your first breath, before your eyes opened, before you even had a name. The world around you looked empty, but it never was. Unseen eyes watched as you laughed, cried, slept, and sinned. They knew your fears. They learned your habits. They memorized the patterns that make you human. The triggers, the weaknesses, the desires. Because from the moment you were born, the Jinn were watching. They don't live in shadows or myths. They exist in the same world, only a layer thinner than sight. They breathe in places you never think about and move in moments you can't measure. You think silence means solitude, but solitude is their favorite time to listen. Every home has corners where light doesn't reach. Every night carries sounds you can't explain. Every human life crosses paths with the unseen. You were never completely alone, not even once. The Jinn don't sleep like you. They don't eat like you. They don't die like you. Their existence is longer, their memory endless. They've watched generations come and go, nations rise and crumble, and with every century, they've learned how to whisper better. They don't need to scare you to win. Fear makes you alert, but comfort makes you vulnerable. So they whisper softly, gently, wrapping their lies around your thoughts until they sound like your own voice. That's how they influence, not by appearing, but by blending a passing emotion, a sudden anger, a thought that feels too dark to be yours. They plant the seed, then stand back and watch you water it. And when you finally act on it, they laugh. Not out loud, but inside your chest. The Jinn were created before mankind. They saw the fire before we saw the clay. They know what power feels like without form. And they've never forgiven humanity for being chosen above them. So they watch, they study, they experiment. For centuries, they've watched empires fall to greed. Marriages burn in silence, friendships die from envy. And they feed on it all. Every argument, every sin, every burst of arrogance is energy to them. They don't just influence evil, they feed on the chaos it creates. And they never forget a soul that lets them in. Every time you act on a whisper, the bond strengthens. Every time you ignore conscience, the gate widens, until one day you no longer need a whisper. You become the whisper. That's when influence turns into control. You think they live far away, in ruins or deserts or haunted places, but the truth is, they live closest to the ones who never remember Allah. Because forgetfulness is the door they use to enter. When the heart empties, they occupy it. When the mind darkens, they guide it. The Jinn know your weaknesses better than you do. They've mapped humanity's emotions like scientists study cells. They know what kind of music stirs your mood, what kind of image keeps you distracted, what kind of person triggers your ego. They move silently through the currents of life, in media, in culture, in dreams. They don't need to possess bodies when they can possess ideas, and ideas are harder to exorcise. They watched the first blood spill on earth. They whispered to Cain before he killed Abel. They learned that all it takes is a moment of pride, and man destroys himself. So they repeat the same lesson in every generation, a society built on ego, addiction, vanity. That's their masterpiece. You wonder why the world feels darker, why anxiety never leaves, why temptation feels heavier. Because they've turned humanity into their theater, a global stage where every sin is entertainment. They don't need to hide anymore. The world performs for them. Their goal isn't to make you believe they exist. Their goal is to make you believe they don't. Because disbelief is their greatest camouflage. The one who denies them is the easiest to control. They know your family, your lineage, your voice. They've walked through your home unnoticed. They've studied your reactions, your weaknesses, your faith. They've seen how quickly you reach for your phone, but how slowly you reach for prayer. They've measured how long you spend in remembrance versus distraction. And with every second, they adapt. This isn't superstition. It's surveillance, a spiritual one. And it's been running since your first heartbeat. The Jinn don't operate with logic. They operate with patience. If they can't break your faith, they'll break your focus. If they can't tempt you to sin, they'll make you proud of avoiding it. They turn even righteousness into arrogance and humility into shame. They're masters of inversion, twisting everything sacred until it loses meaning. Love becomes lust. Faith becomes identity, prayer becomes performance, and once that happens, they don't need to whisper anymore. You whisper for them. They've infiltrated minds that rule nations and souls that lead crowds. They hide behind power, behind science, behind every illusion of control. The modern world calls it progress. They call it conquest. Because while humans build empires, the Jinn build webs. connecting every desire, every weakness, every secret. And the deeper the web, the harder it is to see who's pulling the strings. But they're not invincible. They're ancient but limited. Their power depends on the space you give them. A heart filled with remembrance blinds them. A tongue that recites truth burns them. And a soul anchored in Tawheed is unreachable. Still they wait, for the moment you forget, because they know that every human, no matter how strong, eventually looks away from the light. And in that single moment of darkness, they strike. They don't need to break you to win. They just need to make you stop fighting. They've watched humanity for millennia, and they've learned one thing. The easiest way to destroy a soul is to make it think it's safe, so they'll keep watching, listening, whispering, until the end of time, when the one who created them ends the game they started. And on that day, they'll finally stop watching, because they'll be seen.